Good morning, YouTube. It's your favorite, well-regarded artist here to talk about why it's the best time for you to buy a house, buy into the market, buy pretty much anything, because it's always the best time to buy when everything is at all-time highs. Nothing could go wrong. Absolutely nothing. And there's certainly no fraud being committed in the derivatives market if we're talking about the stock market. Um, certainly a company wouldn't take leverage in order to buy more of something that they can profit on. I mean, imagine that you could buy 1,000,000 shares of something so that if the price moved $1, you could make $1,000,000. But if you could take some leverage, boy, then you could buy 100,000,000 shares, right? And then you could actually move the price and cause other people to buy in as it goes up. And then dump all your holdings. And if you can get a dollar price move out of that, you can pocket $100 million, right? That would be brilliant. And then the housing market. You got two systems of fraud that are operating in there. And I'm not going to go into the details of this. I mean, if you're interested, I'm just trying to open the conversation. If you're interested, there's plenty of people doing in-depth research that I'm paying attention to that explain all this. All you have to do is just start to look it up and start to understand that there's a little bit more underneath the surface than what you're seeing. So with the housing market, the first type of fraud is in the mortgage market. But it ties into the second type of fraud, which is in local government and property tax appraisals. So the fraud in the mortgage market is being done in order to close deals. Because as these values get inflated, as home prices continue to go up, people might not have the underlying income to support the mortgage. You can roughly be extended a mortgage which is 3 times your household income. So if you make $100,000, you can buy a $300,000 house. And there's a great example, hundreds of thousands of homes in Texas, where the median home value in that market is $534,000. And yet, the median household income is 110. That would result in roughly a $330,000 mortgage. These are rough numbers, okay? It's the multiplier is 2.9 or something like that. But just for the sake of the video, let's just call it 3 for simplicity. So those numbers don't line up. So how were those mortgages issued? Well, that is a good question. And there are people looking into this. But it seems like we're just not punishing fraud, lies, like we used to. Um, we instead punish people that ask questions. Critical thinkers, Oh, you're asking questions about that shot we took? Oh, you're an idiot. You need to be excommunicated from the entire system. You need to be shut up. You shouldn't be allowed to speak because instead of just joining the bandwagon, you see all these people making all this money in the market. You see all these people making money in the housing market. Why are you complaining? Why are you being such a downer, a bear? Why don't you just buy in? Why don't you participate? Everybody's making money, even though it's built on a rotten framework and it's not following legal regulations, just kind of doing whatever it wants. I mean, people are making money. So why are you being critical of that system? Because you're a loser? You just want everything to fall apart? Yeah. I mean, that's what you're accused of. Pretty much anytime you ask any questions, you're rewarded for supporting the narrative and you are punished for questioning it. And it's just a really amazing time to be alive. Because in the old days, if you were in a city, a town of 10 people, and there was one thief among you, and you didn't know who it was, well, that would cause distrust and anger one person might dislike the other 9 because they're not sure which of the 9 is stealing their eggplants out of their garden or whatever they're stealing. Their horses, I don't know. Who cares? But we used to punish this because it kept society together. And clearly our society is completely united and none of these forces that I just described work on a larger scale, right? Like there's no instability in our culture, in our society right now. We're all in agreement. We're all working together. We're not arguing with each other about mundane details. Meanwhile, China rises. Meanwhile, we're pushing Russia, China, and Iran together. The BRICS currency is a thing. We gave Iran $6 billion to fund terrorism in that region. Brilliant move, by the way. That was the Biden administration. Just for the sake of giving, you know, responsibility to the party that did it. I mean, it's not a political issue. It's just a bad choice. The Afghanistan withdrawal. I don't even know how many billions of dollars worth of equipment, but we turned Afghanistan into an arms dealer. We left and gave the mining of lithium over to China, which they're just going to sell to us anyway. So we're just outsourcing the mining so that we don't do it ourselves. And thus, we become dependent on China, again, for another resource, which is brilliant. But I'm getting way off track for what we're talking about in this video. So let's get back to the fraud in America. So in the mortgage market, the brokers make money, the mortgage brokers make a commission, the realtor makes a commission on the sale. They are all incentivized inside that system to make things more expensive. They make more money on a percentage-based commission of that. And then on the flip side, you've got the regulators cooperating with this inflation in value because local government officials don't want to raise the tax rate. That is unpopular and they will be blamed for it. So the easiest way to manipulate this market is to use comps a little bit further away in nicer markets so that when you're issuing a mortgage or adjusting property values, you can use comps and you're not following the formula and the requirements to use comps as close as you can find. You're instead just playing a little game. You're saying, oh, let's go 30 miles away because there's this neighborhood over here where the homes are 500,000. And if we can get comps for the property values, then we can raise the property assessment and generate more tax revenue for our local government. Because just like you and me, local governments are not immune to the rise in prices. Our prices are going up. It's more expensive to live for a normal citizen, and by extension, it's also more expensive to operate a local government and do all the things, pay your employees, build a community center, whatever you're doing, update your road system. It's all more expensive because contractors are passing that cost on. So how do they generate more revenue? Well, they play a game with the comp system. And in Texas, there were hundreds of thousands of homes that were run through an Excel spreadsheet. And basically, the whole data set was corrupted. So you have to go back to 2018 and try to figure out what the real values are if you want to go back to reality with that. Because there's a huge game being played with property taxes, not just in Texas, in a lot of states. You might be experiencing it as well. If you are a homeowner, your property taxes might have gone up as a result of an adjustment of the assessed value of your home. So as everything rises up, you depart from the underlying reality of what income is in America. And things get so expensive that people cannot use their income to support buying a home. So yeah, it's the best time to buy in, for sure, when everything is at all-time highs and there's fraud in the markets and the regulators are participating in the fraud because everyone benefits from a rising tide, except for the poor who have no assets because you've had a huge run-up in the value of assets across the board. Stocks, bonds, precious metals, industrial metals, housing market, Pretty much everything is at all-time highs. After a horrible 2-year period in which nobody was doing anything, we were all just sitting at home, hanging out, but we printed tons of money. And that's another unauthorized tax. I mean, you could say it's fraud, but it's part of the way the system works. So the federal government, if they need more money, instead of raising your tax rate and taking a bigger portion of your yearly earnings, what they can do instead is just print more money, thus devaluing not just the money in your bank account, but also your earnings in perpetuity. So if you have $100,000 in the bank and $100,000 in earnings every year, I mean, I know most people are not in that situation, but let's just imagine you do. And they devalue that $100,000 to 80,000 in purchasing power. They have been able to print money for themselves, take value out of your pocket and out of your income forever, and pay for things that they want to pay for, like sending money overseas for war. Whatever war you want, doesn't matter. Ukraine is a great example, though. Hundreds of billions of dollars gone. Meanwhile, in my beautiful state of Colorado, which I love the ski mountains, you have Venezuelan gangs taking over apartment buildings and charging the tenants rent in Aurora. I mean, the governor said it's just your imagination, but the video that shows the gentleman walking around with rifles inside the building kind of tells me that it's not my imagination, right? I like to believe my senses. I know that's not popular. You're supposed to believe what you're told, and it's kind of dangerous, actually, to believe your own senses and do your own research, because not only could you be murdered by someone like Boeing, but you also face social consequences from your peers. It's not even being enforced from the top down. Our society has become tribal. There's a blue tribe and there's a red tribe. And instead of the red tribe and the blue tribe coming together and saying, hey, we need to hold our leadership accountable, whether they're red or blue, if they're committing fraud, if they're not doing the right things, it harms us. It harms the fabric of society. It generates resentment, it generates anger, and it generates desperation among the lower classes. And speaking of lower classes, if we can all agree that in 2018, the cutoff line for lower class was $60,000 in income, and then you go to an inflation calculator and you calculate how much $60,000 is in 2024, it's $100,000. And then if we say how many people in America make over $100,000, well, that's 10% of us. What does that mean? What's the percentage left over who are now lower class, who are not in the middle class? If that cutoff for middle class, the entry to middle class was 60,000, it's now 100, and there's only 10% of Americans that make that much money, then how many of us are currently lower class? They have successfully eviscerated the middle class altogether, because in that 10%, there are people that make much more than 100,000, putting them in the upper class. So some fraction of that 10% is middle class. Let's just say it's 5%. So 90% of us are now lower, 5% maybe are middle, and 5% are just wealthy and don't need to worry about money. It's just become a game for them, running up the scoreboard. You've also consolidated power, and unlike back in the old days, I love history. Back in the old days, power was consolidated through bloodlines, through marriage. But today, money is what consolidates power. We've moved away from that. And now it is just money. buyouts, corporate buyouts, accumulating other revenue streams, growing this corporation into something that can only be described as a black hole of money. So, with all that said, if we can't turn this around using our civic rights, our voting, or our societal relationships with each other, which are now mostly through the online channels that I'm currently speaking with you through, that are kind of censored with AI. I mean, you can't talk about certain things. You can go in the YouTube guidelines and pretty clearly understand what the sensitive topics are. Criticizing pretty much any of the powerful or the rich is very unpopular. However, promoting their agendas is very popular. And if you want to just be a shill, that's super easy. If you want to just get on and have fun and promote the degradation and degeneracy, then that's celebrated. But actually trying to hold people to account and say, hey, let's return to American values of entrepreneurship, working together, sharing common values so that when we show up to work, we can be productive instead of arguing over nothing and figuring out what we're supposed to call each other before we can even get down to business, then that's great. But that's not productive. That's just nonsense in the workplace that's just bringing down our ability to work together because we don't share a common bedrock of social values where we understand that out of control politicians, out of control corporations, and the corporations are out of control because they're actually growing to sizes that they're larger than most governments. So, how does a small government regulate a big corporation? It used to be big national corporations were regulated by an even bigger national government. But now you've got huge multinational global corporations that are operating in all these markets, and one nation tries to enforce some controls on them, well, they just leave that market. They don't need that tiny little piece of revenue. And if that's going to impact their business strategy, then they're just going to walk away. And then on top of all this, you've got bot farms in China. You've got computers controlling hundreds of smartphones at the same time to drive content that they want seen to the top. Like, with 500 phones, and then expand that to entire warehouse floor with thousands of computers controlling hundreds of phones. And what do you have? You have people that have figured out how to manipulate the algorithm, which of course was going to happen. Human beings always find a way to break things. We love to exploit the game. And most people, they find this little exploit and they make a ton of money on it before that loophole's closed for everyone behind them. And they move on to research the next little trick they can pull to make more money. And there's no consequence for that. I mean, the most clear trick that the banks, everybody knows this. Everybody knows. 2008, anyone who saw it. Why, as a bank, would you not run your business into the ground if you know that you are so big that the politicians are afraid of the fallout of letting you fail? Why would you not just take all the risk possible? And if you make money, then you're rich as God. But if you lose money, you lose equivalently and you are poor and you have nothing. And the government has to come in and just print more money to bail you out. Why, if there's no consequence to overspending and taking too much risk and betting it all on black, why would you take any precautionary measures to protect your business? Why would you keep any cash on the sideline for emergencies when you know the government is right there behind you and is going to bail you out? So what are the best investments today? Oh, I don't know. Gold, ammunition, body armor. You can call me crazy if you want. I mean, please tell me, where does this head? I'm not talking about investments. I'm talking about how do we start working together again? How do we stop prioritizing our side winning and we come together so that we can all win together? Whether you're red or blue, I don't care what your beliefs are. I don't care if you're a fox. I don't care about your gender. I don't care about any of this nonsense. I don't care about skin color. I care about America. And it seems like there's a lot of people in this country that love their candidate more than they love this country. And when you depart from prioritizing unity, togetherness, and mutual success for all of us, you begin the path toward a blowout because you only care about your side and you don't care about the success on the other side. And as we become divided, it becomes easier and easier for these people at the top to play games and do whatever they want because there's no solidarity among the masses. You can use labor as an example. Unions are corrupt, but at one point they weren't. And unions were meant for collective bargaining for labor because labor is individualized, scattered, broken apart, and this corporation can say, yeah, we're only going to pay you $1 a day. In order for the union to come, in order for the labor to come back and say, no, we're not going to accept that, they need to come together and say, no, we are only going to work for $20 a day, nothing less. But if you don't come together and form that consensus among the group, then you have to accept whatever is given to you. You can't push back. You can't fight back. You can't hold people accountable. So as we continue to fracture and divide, we continue to lose our collective bargaining power with our own government to do the right thing. And it's also suspicious that these people are only in office for a very short time and suddenly have net worths far beyond what their income should suggest that they have. Quiver Quantitative is a great website that tracks all the trading, the insider trading of our own government officials who are on defense committees and oversee regulations environmentally, and they can see who's going to benefit from what changes are made, and they invest accordingly. And they make millions of dollars. And supposedly that's okay for them to enrich themselves? I mean, doing the right thing for Americans, I don't have the money to give a kickback to Nancy Pelosi when she does something good for me, right? So they're only going to earn their regular government income if they do the right thing. But what do you think they get? How do you think that they would make more money if they do the wrong thing for us but the right thing for a corporation? Oh, I don't know. Maybe they get some campaign donations. Maybe they get some other sort of donation that we don't know about. Maybe they just invest in the stock of a company that they plan to pass legislation that's going to benefit their business model, and then they just profit from the stock. But is that ethical? And do we care? Or are we fine with just unregulated, true capitalism, which puts us in an end game of something like idiocracy, where we're all drinking Mountain Dew, we're all watering our crops with Mountain Dew because one corporation has grown to the point where it is a true monopoly of the entire globe because government regulation is supposed to prevent monopolies from forming because of the power that lies in controlling an entire market. You now have all the pricing power. If you sell groceries and you control every single grocery store in America and there's no alternative, now you can charge $15 for a pack of eggs. And people have no choice whether or not they want to pay it because the option on the other side is starvation. Unless you can provide your own food. Boy, that's another pretty good investment. Just some raw land where you can grow your own food and become self-reliant and build a log cabin with your bare hands and metal and brawn and a bulldozer that you armor with plates and a foot of concrete and then another plate on the outside. And then you go around and maybe you express your discontent with how things are being run with your bulldozer when you're not farming with it. I don't know. But, you know, there's a lot of memes going around about building your own armored bulldozer, and I'm not really sure what that's about, but I am seeing those pop up and I do love it. Because let's reflect on the true founding of America, right? Taxation without representation. And that was over a 2% tax on tea. And we were so incensed by that that we decided to take on what was currently the superpower, England, with their dominance of the seas. No one could defeat them. And yet we came together and decided that we'd had enough. And we said no means no, which is relevant today. No does mean no, okay? But today, it's just open season. Whatever anybody wants to do, whatever anybody wants to be, there's no social accountability for anything. And everything is going to be fine, right? We don't need any rules. We don't need a border. We don't need anything. Why do we even have a government? Let's just go to anarchy, right? Let's let everything sort itself out at the individual level. Let's do away with the government and just see how that goes. Because they just seem to be stealing from the population that they're supposed to represent. Thank you for listening to my schizophrenic episode. I'm sure you think that I'm crazy and just full of nonsense and everything is going to be fine. And sometimes I think I'm crazy too. Sometimes I want to believe that the things that I'm reading are just nonsense and they're fabricated. But the problem is that the sources of information that are supposed to be believed, which would be mainstream media traditionally, are so clearly lying to us. Because a few months ago we had kind of an agreement that Kamala Harris had done nothing. She was the border czar. She hadn't done anything with the border. I mean, everybody can see that. Come on. Everybody can see the videos from the border while she was the border czar. Now they are going back and changing articles, changing the fact that she was the border czar, so that when you go try to find these articles, she's no longer called the border czar. And you're just supposed to forget. You're not supposed to have a memory. You're just supposed to forget, move on, and join the bandwagon of when she said she's going to fix the border, this time she's actually going to do it. This time she means it. She wasn't raised by a Marxist father who taught Marxism at a liberal institution. We're just supposed to believe the news of today. Don't have a memory. Don't go back to what you observed yourself. Just believe the news article today. There's no need for you to use your brain and think about, well, what actually did happen over the last 4 years. No. Just believe the promises, the empty promises, yet again, of a politician running for office who will say anything that they need to get in that position. And then once they're in there, will do whatever they want without any sort of accountability whatsoever. I'm sure that this is a recipe for success, and I'm sure that I'm crazy, so now that I can go on with the rest of my day with no concerns, I'll go to the park and just have a wonderful picnic and maybe 15 bottles of wine to wash down some hot dogs, you know? I don't know. Anyway, it's going to be exciting. You know, it's not going to be boring like the 90s. I do miss when politics were boring. I took that for granted. I used to say the 90s sucked. But truth be told, it's probably the best period of my life. Because everything was boring. No one cared about politics. We were concerned with our families and with our local communities. And there was none of this crazy division. that we have today. Everybody was just going about their daily things and it was very boring. But also, in hindsight, you don't appreciate when things are good until things start to go downhill, it seems. And with that, I bid you adieu.